On today's episode, we have Lindsay Green here to discuss her journey of overcoming addiction, what her life is like now while she helps addicts find recovery, and what you can do for those loved ones suffering. I'm Adam Bob Gunton, and this is the Recovered on Purpose show. The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live Recovered on Purpose. Today's episode is brought to you by Recovered on Purpose. Recovered on Purpose was founded with the vision of raising up an army of you to tell your stories in powerful and impactful ways that will free others suffering from the bondage of addiction, as well as tell your stories in school systems to deter the future generations from going down the path of addiction. Guys, if you want to be part of this movement, possibly be interviewed for this show or on a live on this page, shoot a message to this page. Let me know a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your story, and we'll plan something. Love you guys so much. All right, so Lindsay is the Director of Outreach for Recovery Unplugged. After overcoming her own drug addiction, she now helps addicts suffering, with or without insurance, find the right treatment plan for them. Lindsay, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So we were talking a little bit before we started, and you said you have just about 7 years clean?
Almost 7 years sober.
Awesome. So what's your sobriety date?
March 14th, 2014.
Congratulations. So what we like to do at the beginning of the show is kind of let people know a lot of our addict stories go, like what it was like, what happened, what it's like now. So what kind of led into your addiction? What did it look like, and what did it feel like?
You know what? From a very young age, I remember being a people pleaser and walking on eggshells, always being concerned more about the people in the room, making sure that everybody else was okay. And if everybody else checking the temperature, and if they're okay, then I felt like I would be okay. That's one of the first things that I remember. But other than that, I know that for me, my addiction started much later in life. And really the first thing I remember getting addicted to was Adderall, and remembering that, like, that feeling of needing or wanting that drug. I had a roommate that was prescribed that, and feeling like I really need this medication. And I always felt like I needed more of everything, like even with ibuprofen, like, which does nothing to you except like damage your liver if you take too much of them, right? Like no effect is produced. But I would have to I would take like 8 of them instead of the recommended 4. Like I always just felt like my brain saying, you need more. And so with like Adderall, whatever, I would take 5 pills instead of taking the one that, that you're supposed to take. Or in my case, not even supposed to take, because I'm not prescribed the medication at this time. Right. But from that time on, whenever I first tried that pill, it's like I can clean really faster than I normally can when I'm, waiting these tables, stay focused, but I liked the effect produced. So it just kind of started and went from there.
Yeah. So how did you find them, and what kind of started you to even like start taking them? How did you go from not really having that addiction problem to finding Adderall and deciding to take it?
I had a roommate who she was prescribed Adderall, and she actually used to bribe me. Like she didn't drive and I did. And she would be like, oh, I need to go here. And like, that was her way of bribing. Like, and after she let me try that medication, I'm like, where do you need to go? You want me to drive you to Mexico? Like, where do you want to go? Like, I need more of this, right? And I remember actually like sneaking into her room and knowing where she had that medication. And at first just trying to take like one, but at the end, I would go back into her room multiple times to get more and more pills, because I felt like I needed more of that medication. I wanted to make sure I didn't run out. But it started out by her being like, I'll give you some of this medication. Can you drive me here or there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So how did it progress from there?
So after she didn't live with me any longer, when she moved, I didn't go and try to find that medication anymore or get it prescribed myself or anything like that. But I remember later on, my aunt telling me that there was a doctor that prescribed that medication for specifically for weight loss. Cause I knew that was like an ADHD medication, you know, or ADD. But so I went and got that prescribed myself. And then I started taking it addictively. Like I would take it like 3, 4, 5 at a time. And then that same doctor would be like, do you have any problems sleeping, and prescribe Xanax for sleeping? And I got like just the same way, like now 1 milligram, 2, you know, being able to manipulate the doctors to prescribe more and more by saying, it's not that effective. I'm not able to sleep, you know, go from this much milligram, just get higher doses and more pills. And obviously always run out early, try to get more, or, and I worked in restaurants like this whole time, which is crazy schedules anyway, you know, and then you go out and drink at night with people, or that's what I did. And I just remember it being becoming a real problem at that point. And that was in my like mid 20s.
Yeah, when you say that it became a real problem, a lot of us see like it being a problem in different ways, right? Like, was there like an internal struggle going on? Was it beginning to have consequences in your life, in your relationships? What constituted it as a problem for you?
I feel like for me, it was becoming a problem, like functioning at work, because I was not getting as much sleep. Like I did lose one job, like I quit, but I quit probably before I got fired, before I would have gotten fired, because I was like sleeping at the job when I was supposed to be, like I was like taking a nap downstairs at the couch when I like should have been working, because I was like up all night on the Adderall. And I was probably going to get fired anyway, so I just resigned. And I was assistant general manager of a bar, like in bar restaurant in Bricktown. I'm from Oklahoma, so at that time, and I didn't want to face any type of like criticism. Like they were like, "I need to talk to you later," and I just quit. Like I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"I'm not going to deal with this," so I just quit. But and even with the people, like I know that like it made me irritable, and even with my family, like with my aunt who was trying to help me, like I was just not a fun person to be around in general. But more importantly than that, because I always had like a place to live for the most part, like a car, all of those kind of like outside things. Like I never was homeless, got arrested, anything like that. Like the external things didn't happen that much to me, but the inside thing internally, like feeling miserable and sad and lonely, and like I knew my life was worth, like I was supposed to be more than that and do more than that. Just wanting pills every day and to fill my life with that, but I didn't know how to stop.
Right. Right.
And then from there it progressed to like one day whenever I was at work, I felt this like shooting pain in my back, and I didn't know what it was. Like it was like the worst pain I've ever felt. And I had a friend take me, and I'd already been like kind of taking pain pills, like just occasionally at that point. And she took me to the hospital, and they said I had a kidney stone, and it was like the worst pain I ever felt. But my immediate thought was excitement. Like I was happy because they shot me up with Dilaudid, and it was like the best thing I'd ever felt. And I realized at that point, they told me that I had 30 of them in my kidneys that they could see like on the CAT scan. And that like, basically that they would just, you know, they didn't know when, but they would, I don't know what it's called, but they would come down at any time, like at any time. And I wasn't even like scared of that. I was like, this is a way to get drugs. Like, that's what I remember thinking, and them telling me that there's like blood in your urine, and like just thinking of all those things. And the way they treated me was obviously like, so like, they were like, especially the male doctors, they gave me like a huge prescription for Percocet and even Xanax, I think, or maybe even Ativan, I can't remember, but they were like, this will help with like being a muscle relaxer. So every time I wanted drugs like that, I would just cut my finger a little bit and drip the blood into the urine sample, so they would think that a kidney stone was passing, so there'd be blood in the urine, and they would shoot me up with Dilaudid, like do the whole thing, you know. So and that became, I mean, that obsession, lasted for a long time of like getting pills, until the end there when I finally went to like one of my restaurant managers and I knew when I walked into this conversation, like the breaking point for me was like, um, thinking about like shooting up heroin. Cause like just the guy that I was getting pills from, like couldn't get pills anymore. Like that was becoming increasingly hard. Like I was taking like 5 Roxy at a time, which is like $150 a time because they're $30 a pill. It's
Right.
like really expensive, obviously, to maintain that, and for some reason to find those instead of. And they kept trying to get me to switch to shooting up for some reason, right? But and I really thought about it, and I was going to let him come over and do that. And I called one of my friends, Jared, and he's like, "If you do that," and obviously part of me didn't want to because I called him, right? He's like,
Right.
"I will drive my car into your house." And like it was just like the wake up call of that. And I went into work the next Sunday morning, like, and I could tell that my boss had been talking about me to my other boss that I used to work for, because I worked at Applebee's like on and off for like 10 years. They're like pretty much the only people that would have like put up with all of the shenanigans and like the crazy things that would have happened. But they really like saved my life, I feel like, because they were talking about, I think, how bad it had gotten. Because we had a friend who overdosed and died. Like there's in Oklahoma, Stacey Murphy's law, like is a literal law in Oklahoma, because she passed away at a treatment center, and like they have a law after her. And I told him like, I can't do this anymore. Like I don't want to, like, if I would have passed a lie detector, if you would have asked me like, do you want to get drugs today? I would have said like, no, like I want to stay sober. Like I don't want to, but 30 minutes later, I would be texting everybody in my phone, like, can you get me pills? Like,
Right.
I wanted to stop. And so if anyone that knows a restaurant like is busy Sunday mornings, we were a training store, and he called in another manager and like locked us in the office and called every treatment center, and they all wanted like, you know, thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands, like just, and I didn't have insurance. I was a server, and he kept getting more and more frustrated. And finally someone told us to go to a hospital, and just, if you are suicidal or feeling that way or whatever. And I just thought like, well, there's not going to be any other much options if I don't get, help. So sometimes the system is broken, and so he drove me to the hospital, and they admitted me, and I told them like, don't give me any drugs. Like, like I've been coming here and breaking your rules for a long time, like, and lying to you, and just told them everything. I was like, just surrendering. And he went and got all the nurses like Freddie's frozen custard, like brought me back something and was like, take care of her, brought them all like fries and shakes. And that's what kind of just started it all. I went to detox after that. And I went to the rehab, and I didn't stay sober after that rehab. But that's what started it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find it, it's kind of interesting that I had an OD when I was like, I think I was 19 or 20, and I had my first OD. And about a year or two later, I was at my house, and I had roommates and everything, and like I had this crazy back pain. Like I remember, like I was just so, like I was sick from it. It hurt so bad, and I was like, I remember being at the bottom of these stairs, like crying up the stairs to get my friend's attention, my roommate's attention. Ended up having him take me to the hospital, and because of my last OD, where I was hospitalized, they thought that it was drug-seeking behavior, so they just like told me there was nothing they could do for me, and so I'm just going through this pain. Right? And I had never even heard of kidney stones at this point. And then 2 days later, I'm peeing, and bloop, bloop, 2 things come out, and I feel completely better. So I just find it interesting that that there's just different circumstances for going to the hospital and seeking drugs or not. So guys, we're gonna take a quick break, and after the break we're gonna talk about how Lindsay got clean and sober and what it looks like now and how she helps people get into treatment. Love you guys, see you in just a second. All right guys, today's episode is brought to you by Recovered on Purpose. Guys, this mission with Recovered on Purpose is to help you get your story out. If you want a copy of my story totally free, go to recoveredonpurpose.com, subscribe at the bottom, and I'll give you a free Audible and digital copy of my book. And guys, I don't even know how to use an email list yet, so don't worry about me sending you a whole bunch of emails. I literally just want to tell you my story. And guys, if you want to tell your story on this show or possibly do a live with me on this page, shoot me a message on this page. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what you want to do. And guys, if you are out there and you are suffering with addiction, if you're having a problem getting clean, reach out to Lindsay Green and the Recovery Unplugged team, and they will look for a place to help you with. Love you guys so much. See you right after the break. All right, guys, welcome back. So before the break, obviously we were talking about her addiction and what it looked like to be working and the spiral of pill addiction and what that kind of looked like and going to the hospital. So now she finds herself in the hospital seeking help, actually being honest. So Lindsay, how did it happen from there and how did you get recovered?
So after that, I did go to a detox that was a state-funded place with the assistance of my family. And actually, quick funny story: my grandpa, he has a little hard of hearing, and whenever my aunt told me the story, like years later, whenever they were leaving, my aunt told me that she thought that he was like, I don't know why actually, I'm not going to tell you that story. He misunderstood what they were saying. He's like, we could have just beat her up for free. And my aunt's like, what? And he's like, some boxing. And she's like, what? He's like, we could have just taken her out back and beat her up for free. And my aunt's like, Suboxone, it's medication, it's for detoxing.
Oh, like some boxing.
He thought they were he thought they were giving me boxing lessons. He's like, why did we have to pay them for that? We could have just taken her to boxing for free. And she was like, no, they're giving her Suboxone. That's detox medicine. But anyways, so I did that, and I went to a treatment center, and I decided there, like, everybody had been there like 17 times, like a million times, like a bunch of times. And it was my first time. So, and it was a women's only place. There was only a couple people there, and everybody there, they were like, be honest. Like, it was very like, I don't know. When the counselor would ask stuff, she would be like, are you done digging? Like, have you reached your bottom? And everybody else there was like, yeah, I'm done digging. Like, I want to throw away the shovel, break it, like set it on fire. And I was like, I could go further, like, it was just very like, so, but then they had told me like, you can't drink either because that'll lead you back to your drug of choice. And I'm like, I never had a problem with alcohol. Like, I'm definitely going to drink when I leave here, but like, you're right. Pills are bad for me. Like, I can't do that anymore. So when I left, I convinced my family, like, they said I can't do pills, but I can still drink. So we had like celebration margaritas when I left treatment for
oh my
lunch, for me graduating rehab. And I ended up and I did drink alcohol just fine. Like, I didn't black out. I didn't drink it every day. I didn't drink it every other day. But one day my back really hurt. And I really, after I had a glass of wine or two, and ended up in the hospital, and I took pills like I normally took them, and I ended up in ICU. I overdosed.
Wow. And
so that's what led me to sober living, to Oxford House. And so I've been sober ever since that, because I ended up in a psych hospital, and like just being able to like not leave there. Like, I've never been anywhere where I couldn't leave, like where I was like behind, like they wouldn't unlock the door. And like, no matter what I said, I couldn't manipulate my way out of the situation. And that was like terrible for me. Yeah. So then I got a job with Oxford House, sober living. And I loved it. Like that's how I ended up in San Antonio. I had 9 months sober when I got the job, and I transferred down here, and then they transferred me back to Oklahoma, to Portland, Oregon, to New Mexico. And then I got a different job, like helping people get into treatment. And I asked to come back here to San Antonio. But, I had like 15 months sober, I think, when I had my first like real spiritual experience with, I mean, I had many other like small ones, but like really surrendering and like being like, okay, this is not the Truman Show. These people aren't around me like pretending to be happy. They really are. So I'm going to stop wondering, like, I'm going to actually do what they're doing, and hopefully I'll get what they got.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it my way anymore. And I still fall back on that all the time. Like, I like to do things my way. I'm like Veruca Salt. Like, I want what I want, and I want it now. Like, I want a pony, like I want the golden ticket.
Right.
So I still have problems with that. Like, I'm a brat, but I have to go back to the basics, and help people and be of service and get out of my own way. And I'm really grateful that I get to help people, but my job is not my recovery. Like, I get to sponsor people, and be of service in lots of different ways. Because if I don't have fun without drugs and alcohol, what's the point? If I was going to be sober and miserable, I might as well be high and miserable.
Right.
Like, I get to float the river sober and take people along. Before coronavirus, I would host game nights at my house, and hearing people say, like, I didn't know I could have this much fun sober. Like, yes, sober is fun. Like, having fun and doing all of those things, like, that's so important to me.
Amen. Amen. So you're a 12-stepper? Is that how you got sober?
Yeah. So my home, I do 12 steps.
Awesome. And then you've been able to sponsor other women and get them through the steps and help them. So what has it been like to be put in a position where, and I love that you're separating the job from recovery, because I actually, I have that conversation with people all the time. Even a sponsee now that's working on his CAC license and everything, I'm like, there's a difference between the job in recovery where you get paid and then the service of your recovery and your program, right? So what does it look like in your service part? And being able to sponsor women, being able to be in a position of maximum usefulness to God and others. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, because what I do in my job daily, like, that has nothing to do. I mean, like, I'm grateful that I get to do that too, and that it helps people. But when I get to work the steps with people, it's so awesome and you experience this. I'm obviously also, it's always a mirror of everything I'm going through, usually in my job, but in my personal life too. Everything that comes out of my mouth, I'm like, oh, I need to start. I'm like, okay, let's work on doing 10 steps. I'm like, I haven't been doing my 10 steps lately, so let me follow my own advice. Like, everything that comes out of my mouth, I'm like, and I'm going to start practice. And I tell them too. I tell on myself. Like, I'm very good about that. Like, as I'm saying it to them, I'm like, and I'm going to start practicing what I preach and start doing 10 steps because I'm telling you to do it. Like, I have a new sponsor that I'm working with right now that I'm really excited about. And I waited a week, this new sponsee that I have, I'm like, give me a second, because I'm meeting with her Thursday, tomorrow. And I'm like, let's do it exactly as I'm doing it with her, so we're going to do exactly what I'm doing with this new sponsor. Like, I've worked with a lot of different people because I've lived in different states. So being able to still work with women and being in service, like, it doesn't just mean, like, to me, like, thinking of others besides myself, like calling somebody and asking somebody how their day is and not talking about myself, buying the people behind me coffee, like putting a gift card out and like not expecting anything in return, or like not expecting praise from the person that, like, just doing something because, like, I want somebody else to have a good day. Like, little things, or like, like sitting down and reading the book with somebody. I don't know, just when I get out of my own way and out of my own head, it's just a much better day.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've been practicing recently is praying for the opportunity, and this is in the morning, asking God to give me an opportunity to be of service to someone else today. right? And whenever I pray that in the morning, it's amazing what happens, because my perception is changed on how I view others, because then all of a sudden I'm looking for that opportunity, because I know that God is going to answer that, right? I know that, and it doesn't always mean like service doesn't mean sponsoring, being on the committee and chairing a meeting always. It doesn't always mean that. There's so many ways that in our lives we can practice principles of service in all of our affairs, right? When we're walking down the street, a smile, if we're not wearing a mask, right, can be a changing time for somebody that day, right? So what does service look like for you outside of your job and carrying the principles into your life?
I mean, to me, like integrity and honesty are really important. And just like everything that I initially think that I don't want to do, I always tell people I feel better after I do. Like being being vulnerable and transparent with people, I think is so important, because it allows them to be that way also. Telling people, I don't always want to answer the phone at 10 o'clock at night. Like, I don't always want to do this or that, but I always feel better when I do. Like, I don't always want to like write this long 4-step and look at my part, or like, I don't want to do this or that, but I feel better when I do that, and my service work is obviously part of it is working with others, and, carry the message. Like I got to, I love whenever I get to do that, because it just reminds me of how beautiful the program is in general. But beyond that, like there's so many ways, like you said, like being able to be of service to people. And like there's a prayer that I love that I was taught a long time ago, which is like very, very simple. And it's just block it or bless it, letting me know that I'm not in control, like if this is meant for me, like whatever's meant for me is not going to miss me in general, but just asking God to block it or bless it. And just me being content with like not controlling the outcome of things, and that gives me such peace. Like even with people that are like, if I'm like talking to somebody or dating, like block it or bless it. Like if they're not meant to be in my life, like just knowing that rejection is God's protection, and just let them like stop texting me and me be okay with it, or this job, if it's not meant to be, block it or bless it. Like this job that you're interviewing for, like whatever, just knowing that like everything that, if the things that I wanted for my life came true, my life would not be anywhere near this great.
Right.
My life is this great because God's will is better than mine, period.
Amen. So guys, we are so grateful that you've been here with us to watch this episode. We encourage you, if you're out there, whether you're suffering with addiction right now, or if you're in your recovery, right? If you're in your journey of recovery, look for more opportunities to serve. There's so many ways to live in God's will. And obviously it's better, like Lindsay was saying, than our will. So Lindsay, thank you so much for being here with me today and blessing us with your story.
Thank you for allowing me to. I appreciate it.
And guys, we will see you next week. Love you guys so much. The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live recovered on purpose.